Welcome back, all you loyal Point 3 people, to the MCU redo. Join your favorite trio of hosts as we look at the many blunders, missteps, and at times, the successful moments and characters the MCU has given us. And we're going to give our thoughts and opinions as to what they could have changed to make something truly phenomenal. This can range from the entire project to just singular moments. Either way, strap in and get ready as we enhance your experience with the MCU redo. Today, we are bringing a fantastic project that is slightly coming back into the forefront of MCU news and rumors. We are going to be talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We're going to give you our thoughts on a nice look back of what we could have changed, like you said in the opening. For those of you who have not watched this movie, spoiler warning, light, medium, and heavy. We're going to be getting into it. This movie came out in 2022, so if you're not on it, which some people aren't, some people are just really stacking it up until the next big Avengers event. So just pause it and come back in 2023. I mean 2030, excuse me. Right. Spider Brando. If I had to give you, or if you had to give everyone watching and listening one word about Multiverse of Madness, what would it be?
One word. There's one word that I could think of, but it's more of a joke word.
I just want to see if you'd commit to it.
We wanted it to happen.
I can't.
First two letters.
I'm gonna go. What?
First two letters of the word that shall not be said.
M-O.
Multiverse of. All right. What is?
No, I think my true one word is just strange. Fitting with just, it was a strange movie.
Yeah. I like that. Hero Scroll?
Madness.
Oh, I guess I'm going to choose of. All right, there we go. We have it. That's a 0.3 certified. Strange, Madness, and of. Listen, I want to throw this out here real quick. My favorite quote from this, my best line from this movie. You break the rules and become the hero. I do, and I become the enemy. That's how I sum up this movie. Kind of a contradiction and a mess. Hero Scroll, what would you do to kick off this video to start switching up, keeping it the same? What would you change? What are your thoughts on Multiverse of Madness and the MCU redo?
So the more I think about Multiverse of Madness and the more I realize that I like it, and I think we're all kind of on that same boat that this movie ages very well. But a lot of things at first glance are like, change it. And it's like, it's something you kind of have to step back and really take a look at and think about, okay, maybe this wasn't what I wanted, but it's still good. So what else can I look at? And it might sound cheap to say it this way. I really wish they had more corporate synergy between each other. In terms of the projects, where back to back we got, WandaVision, then we got What If, and then I feel like we should have gotten this, and this should have tied into those better than it did. And I really think for a good majority of people that would have cemented this as maybe a top 10 MCU movie if they did everything right, but they didn't. For me, it still stays in the upper echelon of MCU movies, but I think that's the first thing. And I know that it's kind of cheating because real life stuff happened with the pandemic and writers changing and the writers not being allowed to see the script or not the script, WandaVision and write it. that still stings, and I think that's always something that I'm going to be like, I wish we got to change that.
Yeah, I mean, we know Michael Waldron was a part of this project as a writer, who ultimately became that after Scott Derrickson no longer remained on the project. And Sam Raimi ultimately took over, who we know from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. So very interesting. And yes, that is the thing. I think it's recirculating now, where people are just like, oh my gosh, Elizabeth Olsen had an interview where she's like, hey, guess what? They didn't really know what happened in WandaVision, and vice versa. Like, no one played ball, right? There was a lack of corporate synergy when it came to that. But I will say, there was a lot of hype going into this movie. The marketing for this movie, the trailers for this movie, the title itself, it was Multiverse Saga. Crazy things are happening. No Way Home happens. Strange is doing some stuff. Like, we know Wanda's going to be in this. We know the Scarlet Witch is going to be in this. We saw as fans the post-credit scene for WandaVision by this point, right? So we know that she had the book. She had the Darkhold. She was doing her levitating thing. She was crushing Strange. She was walking around and all that kind of stuff. We're just like, wow, we didn't get Strange in WandaVision. Wanda looks super OP at this point and is on the road to even greater power, one could assume. And then this movie comes around. My first question before we go into this for you guys is, did Wanda feel too powerful at the time, if you can recall, and compare that to the current landscape of the MCU in terms of where she fits in at this point of where we're at in phase 5?
I feel like we still haven't seen what she could truly be capable of. Like, I mean, obviously we got to see her insane power, but she was mainly up until the Illuminati and like fighting Strange. She was just killing regular sorcerers and the Taj. No,
Karmatage.
yeah, Karmatage. Um, Obviously she absolutely destroyed the Illuminati, which was amazing to see. But she still has, I think she's still got a lot more power that she could lash out with people.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little more later on. But to answer the question, I think at the time she felt way too OP. It was like, what is this character? She came out, she was killing people left and right, and even though like Spider Brando said, yeah, at first the Carmitage, she was killing everybody, but I mean, those are supposed to be like some of the top sorcerers in there, and she's just demolishing them. The Illuminati, even Strange felt like nothing compared to her, which is crazy. And I think that's another blunder of it, where it really dampened Doctor Strange too much, where it really felt like the ending was setting up to give us something really cool, and then he was just like, I can't beat her, so I mean, go do something.
Yeah. And then on top of that, right? So in hindsight, I think from going through, sitting through, reading, watching, listening, the general consensus is Wanda was very OP, almost too OP. Strange felt nerfed in a way, but also we get our end of Wanda's arc, if you will, for a lot of people, and we get the classic character death, but we see no body. For you guys, how has that sat? Because real world now, Elizabeth Olsen is on record saying, hey, I dedicated too much of my time to the MCU and I could have been doing a lot more other things. My portfolio is I'm a superhero, but that's not necessarily who I really wanted to be at that time. And I lost out on a lot of potential career enhancing roles that I could have been casted for, but I was doing MCU stuff. And then also you get the standpoint of fans being like, well, Scarlet Witch is dead, but now we're going to get an Agatha series that's coming out. What's going to happen? Billy Tommy. I think we've seen clips and stuff on that now. You know, fans are just like, we don't want her to come back. You have your Kang story, and we don't want her to come back. She's dead, so stay dead. Just like in our Robert Downey Jr. kind of thing. You're done. That's it. Scarlett Johansson. That's it. Kang from Quantumania. Same thing. No body, but is he dead? I don't know. From that aspect of how that ended, how has that kind of marinated for you guys over time as well?
I don't think she's dead. Ain't no body seen, and there's no way she could have just. I guess I don't know. I just don't think it would have fit her character to just kill her off right there. And if that's the route that they did choose, I feel like that pretty much contradicted the entire point of WandaVision, which some people say this whole movie did. I understand both sides, but to straight out kill her after this, I think that definitely contradicts her story arc, and she still has some redemption and power to freaking go out and make things right. Like, she was able to dream walk across one universe to another. We're about to be entering or in the middle of the multiverse saga. Why kill her off if you can't use her powers for like later on stories? So they definitely left it open like that just because they didn't know what was going on at the time. But I'm a big Wanda fan here, as the red may fit.
Scarlet Brando.
That's a nice ring to it.
It does. It muddied the waters a little bit, though, where you get a lot of people now kind of divided on what they should do. And however, I will say that at least if they want to bring her back, maybe they don't bring the 616 version of Wanda. You can definitely have the 838 Wanda come back, because we know she's there and she has her powers. So it'll be interesting to see. It's just one of those things that maybe it was too soon for her to go down that route, especially after only her like second major appearance. I think maybe this could have been, maybe her villain arc could have been saved towards the end of the saga, and having her brought back at like the next movie at the end and coming in and redeeming herself. But we just kind of have to wait and see, and I think that kind of sucks.
And third major thing, of course, we like threes here. So the third major thing I'll throw out here is the addition of Sam Raimi to the MCU. Because going into this, there was that horror element that he was going to be bringing, that classic Raimi style of directing and how he uses cameras and dynamic action sequences and over the top, and just it was supposed to feel really different. And for me personally, I think you had some moments of that, especially at Kamertage, where you felt like Wanda is doing some, I wouldn't say horror-ish things, but I'm like, that's kind of spooky. Like, she was doing some stuff where I'm like, if I were in their shoes, would I feel just completely freaked out because all of my allies have been toasted? I think something, and she's like, I'm sorry, what'd you say? And I'm just like, I didn't say anything. And she's like, dead. You know, like, you see all that kind of stuff, and you're just like, from that standpoint, I think he did elevate the characters. But now with him potentially being rumored for Secret Wars, knowing what he's done with Multiverse of Madness, do you guys think that that was a good choice in hindsight to have someone who carries such a unique style of directing be attached to a project as highly touted as Multiverse of Madness was, and ultimately succeeded in a lot of ways on the back end?
I do think it was a good idea, because I think Sam Raimi has shown that he's capable of towing that balance between knowing a character and the like what that shot and should feel like, and then putting his flair to it. Spider-Man series being, a very good example of that. And this continues on. I mean, you look at the way that some of these shots are directed absolutely fantastic. I think majority of the blunders of the movie come down to the script, and he has nothing to do with that. So
Mhm.
I think that I wouldn't change him as a director, honestly. I think that's one of the parts that you keep.
Yeah, I thought he was good. I was excited once they announced it, just given that they wanted to do this whole horror-esque vibe for like the first horror-esque movie in the MCU. Who better to pick than Sam Raimi with Evil Dead and stuff? But I don't know. I feel like just given with everything that was going on around the time with the reshoots, COVID, um, the company synergy, and I think there's just like what we talked about in one of our recent episodes with executives and too much executive control in the movies. I think this was the direct victim of that. Because I mean, looking back at it, there's moments where like you could easily tell it's Sam Raimi horror style, and like those are his shots. But there's so much of this film that like for they consider it what they say a horror film did not feel very harrowing to me. I
Mhm.
was every like sitting throughout the theater. I'm like, where is the horror in here? And I hate horror stuff. Not like anything against it. I'm just very bad with horror stuff. So I was kind of excited to see like the MCU spin on it, but I could barely even remember what type of horror elements were even in this movie. Granted, I've only seen it once in theaters. If I watched it again, I could probably recall more. Um, Besides, I guess just them making Wanda feel so like harrowing and bloody and stuff, but I was expecting a little different of like horror. And I think the executives may have cut that out a little bit more just to piece different storylines together or not really know what they were doing.
Yeah.
I,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm gonna disagree on it just a little bit because I do think there is a lot of that in the movie. It's just not as full on as like you know any a full on horror movie would be. They still have to kind of toe that line, but
Yeah,
there's still a
that's
lot of
true.
different forms of horror in the movie where you get a lot of the Scarlet Witch scenes, you get like body horror stuff with like the dream walking. I would say the big thing, and this is kind of what I wanted to see what you guys thought on this particular character, because I think she's the one that kind of throws off the movie. And again, this is purely based off of script and the story for her, is America Chavez. She just feels off in this movie. And I think out of place is the word.
I can personally say that in my own version of this redo that I have in my notes over here, she's not a part of my redo. I personally like the message at the end of My Body, My Choice type of thing of like, who's going to tell me how to use my power, my
Mhm.
body besides me? And I get that. The hard part about that is you have your whole MCU, your MCU woke stuff, all that kind of stuff of forcing some sort of agenda that aligns with political today. Don't think that's the case, right? However, she did feel out of place for me, and I think she could have better been suited with a Young Avengers type of movie or having her come in just a piece of this of like knowing that she's at Kamartaj, right? Just that she's there of like intrigue of like who is this character? Why is Wong doing this Wong Academy type of thing? Why is he where did she come from? Build that interest and intrigue for fans to kind of look at and be like, listen, you guys need a way to escape. Boom, here's a star. See ya. And we're just like, I'm sorry, what? It would have been a massive gripe for people at the time, but ultimately a character that they could have explored and at least wouldn't have been a Rintra who they make all these toys and figures and stuff for. And people are like, who? Like he wasn't in the movie. And I'm like, no, he definitely was in the movie. Yeah. she if she was kept in, I'll say this. I think they could have positioned her to be that battle hardened. I've seen some things kind of character to be like when she does ultimately come across an Amon Villani, Miss Marvel, a Kate Bishop, and they're street level and very innocent. She's like, no, you guys don't understand how big of a threat a multiversal character like a King is. I've been traveling the multiverse. I can take you there right now, and I'm telling you, it is not a good thing that someone has the ability to come from multiple places or access this. You guys don't know. Not because I know the technology, but I can literally be like, bam. Have you ever gone through a paint dimension and had your molecules rearranged and all that kind of stuff and had to have been able to be pulled back, but only one of you came back and the other person never made it? Like that kind of stuff is like that heavier, darker tone they could have brought with her. And I think it was supposed to be more like fun and lighthearted and like her and Wong would be like, hey, let's get along. Like, I like you, you like me, let's be friends.
They also just kind of make her pointless throughout the movie in the sense of the stuff with dream walking. They show you very quick that there's other ways to get across dimensions. So Wanda's interest in her kind of becomes unwarranted and it ends up seeming a little stupid for her, especially someone as smart as Wanda. You would think that she would have done something else to achieve her goal, but and they just kind of tell you, well, she can't. And they're like, you ask why, and they're like, she just can't. She needs America. Just take that. And it's like, okay.
I have a thought to exactly what you just said. Spider Brandon, I'm curious on your thoughts of America in general.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were gonna ask him first. Then go back. I don't know why.
No.
I didn't mind her in the movie, but like looking back, she was there straight up just as a plot point. And honestly, I kind of forgot about her character until we just started talking about this again.
She's forgettable
And
for sure.
it's just like to think that a character like that, I feel like we have to see her again throughout this multiverse saga. I just don't know when. I feel like she could have been. I know they had all those rumors of apparently with the original release window, she was supposed to be in No Way Home or something, and the one to bridge Toby and Andrew over. Then how would that even where would that have even fit into the story to make it cohesive or make sense? But I don't know. She just feels out of place, like you guys both said. I I would have liked to see her. I guess she's still more experience. She still needs more experience with her powers, and she's young. But I think they could have used her character arc to set it up in a much better way and be like, oh, like I had to travel through, like you said, all of these different dimensions just to get to like a place she found home, and that could have been the Defender Strange World. But she just fell flat.
I almost would have preferred if they would have swapped ages between her and Kate Bishop and made her the older one on the Young Avengers team, and then kind of backfilled her story and fleshed her character out throughout.
Kind of
And made
Haley.
I mean, that's the hard part because I'll be honest with you, I like both of the actress choices for them. And I think they're going to be great additions as they do age up in the MCU. Very similar to like how Harry Potter characters aged, where I feel like the story gets a little more dynamic the older they get, which would be really good for this potential Young Avengers team that they have today. However, the overarching piece and what I would have redone if I had the keys to this movie, stealing that from Spider Brando, I would have had a puppeteer in this movie and not have positioned Wanda as that puppeteer controlling things.
Yeah.
It would have been a Mephisto, Chthon, a Mortis Kang, one of them. I would have had them been pulling the strings to really explain why you're going after America Chavez is because I've tried so many other things. This is just one version of my attempt that I'm doing at this time. But I've tried other things. This failed. I have another, bag of tricks up my sleeve of saying like, hey, if it's a Kang thing, I don't have it. If it's a Cthon thing, that could be him reporting to Mephisto if you want. If it's a Mephisto thing, then you're working in tandem and you're pulling in Strange One and saying, hey, I'm working with Mordo, 616 Mordo. I'm Mephisto. I can't get out of where I'm at. I need a way to do this, and we have to get these things to fall in line to do it. And I'm going to manipulate a lot of people along the way.
I remember saying this a long time ago to a friend where my one big version, besides not having America, is you have Dormammu being the main villain.
Sure.
And I think you align that for all three of the movies, where the first one, he's in the chaos dimension and he has, I guess you could say, that vendetta against Strange in a way, but maybe make it that he needs to get out, or just simply because he's in the chaos dimension, he wants to cause that everywhere, and Wanda was his outlet, I guess you could say, especially her being like a chaos being. You then easily bridge in all those things, and then your post credit also connects really well to now, the events happening. Clea comes out and it's like, hey, you now have to help me because we need to go fix this.
I almost take Clea out of that post credit. Clea should have been a part of this movie, in my opinion. I think you should have put Clea in this movie, removed America Chavez, and really went down that dark dimension, chaos dimension, Dormammu. I can't think of her name, but whoever Dormammu's sister is that gets unlocked when he dies or something like that. I always say it's not like you ought to. I don't know. It's someone, but there's someone else out there. But this, I think, was the opportunity to take a step further and expand and world build the MCU. Not necessarily the multiverse, because I think the multiverse aspect of this is kind of dumb in a way. And when you take America out, the multiverse piece is kind of like, And then you really kind of firm Wanda up to be like, no, you don't need to be a villain. So we're not going to dreamwalk to find a world where Billy and Tommy exist and I can inhabit a Wanda who has them. The multiverse really, in my opinion, doesn't have much to do with this. It's more dimensional travel, very similarly to how Quantumania was, where it's like, okay, there are dimensions where we can travel. We build on What If, which they showed us. You figure that out. You expand the darker side of the MCU, plant your seeds so that Wanda feels better the next time we see her. Strange still feels like he could be the most powerful Avenger still. But I'm going to give you guys this real quick from the beginning of like just kind of the core plot that I would thought. The story does stay around a physical Darkhold book carrying over from WandaVision, right? Let's not nerf WandaVision. Let's make sure we keep a solid connection from movie to TV show and vice versa and just play back and forth. But you get Wanda sensing some sort of disturbance within the Darkhold, and the Darkhold is calling out to her. Wanda's still good. The Darkhold is evil. That she's using something that's evil that's ultimately going to corrupt her. Fine. But she's the one that goes and she's the one who seeks out Strange to understand the Darkhold. I know what I want, which are my kids. I know I have the Darkhold from Agatha. I have a lot of power. I want to harness it and use it. What I ultimately want is just a way to get my children. She seeks out Strange. From there, they essentially are going to go to Kamar-Taj to investigate, and that's where we open it up to enter new characters, enter problems, enter concerns. We start kind of mixing it up once she gets there to be like, she shouldn't be here. Like, that's not a character you want. And you have Wanda who now gets kind of pushed backwards into a corner. People don't want to be around her, so she has more alone time to keep working with the Darkhold, to keep using her spells, to do that kind of stuff. And ultimately, you're going to have Strange who's corrupted. You have Wong who starts to get corrupted. Like, all these people start getting corrupted. And if you really want to and keep the multiverse aspect to this, you can still use that Dark Strange that we got. What was his name? The music Strange.
Sinister Strange.
Sinister Strange and Supreme Strange. Forget the Illuminati. Forget 838 Mordo. Forget that. Put your 616 in, and you can still have that thing of saying Strange is the most dangerous character in the multiverse. And we're like, no, we definitely see Wanda is, but it's like, no, Strange is. And we get that through Strange in every world will be corrupted by the Darkhold. And you just start mixing those things in, and you're just like, Wanda isn't the bad character. She's just really kind of going to be unstable. Strange is the one we have to worry about for the rest of the saga because he's the leader of the Avengers. He's the guy. And when we start losing the guy, who's going to be next? You bring in Clea, and then you go on your Dormammu adventure. That is how I would position this movie. Mordo's still around, lurking in the shadows. Mephisto is lurking in the shadows. And you have a core group of characters who can have some of the nastiest fights and battles that we've seen, and the horror element will fit without being too real. But it's just enough to where you can have two OP characters go full OP, but you just got to pull some of those things that we're getting teased in and eliminate the hunt for the kids, eliminate America, and just really go for it and let the Darkhold do its thing that it really did, but was way too fast in my opinion.
Spider-Man, it looks like you. It looks like you had to say something, but it was that. You're muted.
I was waiting to drop the boom looking for this.
Fair.
That was very that. If that was the Multiverse of Madness that we would have gotten, ooh, I would pay you $1 million right now if I had it.
Marvel will be paying us one day, all right?
One day.
They're going to be paying the Boy Through podcast.
It really felt like, to me, at least in my dream version of Multiverse of Madness, right? You tie in Supreme Strange almost as your puppeteer, and it really felt like at first that is what they were setting up from WandaVision to this, to where I still think the hunt for Wanda's kids, I think that should motivate her. And I think that's an aspect you keep regardless of whatever version of this film you're telling. I think that's what should motivate her regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it ends up becoming her going not full villain, but a little bit, right? I'd still say having someone behind that would be nice to have. And I think Supreme Strange would have been great, because in What If, they very much tell you there are certain points in time and dimensions that you cannot fix. It's a set point in time. And for him, it was, I forget her name.
Christine Palmer.
Christine dying, right? And I think that they should have kept that into this, where he always knew, hey, in whatever dimension and time you go to, your kids aren't there. Your kids aren't real. They're always made up. And I think that hurts her. But then you get a nice setup, like you said, of Strange versus Strange, where now he sees what he can become, and everybody else sees what he can become. And then you continue that into your third movie.
I would like that Destiny theme in a way of like, no matter where you go, you're never going to have your kids. And for Strange, no matter what you do, like, you end up being the bad guy. Obviously, they find a way to fix it, but they fix it in their own. They try to manipulate the narrative that's being told to them in the shadows on their own. Wanda's stealing souls everywhere that they go. And Mordo potentially is the one who's seeing her do all this. And he's like, Strange, you see what she's doing. And he's like, no, that's not who she is. She won't do that. Wong, you see what she's doing. No, why would we believe you? You've killed. You've done these things. You left us. You're no longer. You're just trying to manipulate it so you can be Sorcerer Supreme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of it.
I think they could have done a lot more with that.
So we definitely needed a better puppeteer, just like some sort of twist that wasn't what we seemed.
Yeah. If they release this movie post this new Marvel Spotlight, mature, rated R, post Deadpool world, I think this movie could have satisfied a lot more people as is if they would have turned everything that you guys were talking about in the beginning just up a notch. The Illuminati waxing was fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I personally really liked it. I think that they could have made it a little more boysish, if you will, in terms of how practical and the effects and the type of things that they could have done. Like Wanda should have just blown heads off.
You know, it's funny because I've had that particular conversation before with a lot of people. And I think the power that comes to that scene is that it isn't your conventional murder spree where I think something like The Boys, you think of Black Bolt, his head would have blown up. But I think there's something a lot more lasting of seeing his head just melt into itself like it did. I think that lasts a lot more. And seeing Mr. Fantastic just get spaghettified and, seeing Captain Carter implied getting, I think your imagination's always going to do worse.
No, she can't.
She can't. I think your imagination's always going to do worse. And I think that was perfect. I don't think you needed to boysify it because then I think you end up copying too much and you just don't.
I agree with you.
You could get creative, but at the same time, your imagination's worse.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that coming from playing devil's advocate for the mainstream, loud vocal MCU fans that are ever present today of being like, I want monster movies and big guerrilla attacks. I feel like there is a level. I don't care. I like leaving things open. When movies end open-ended, I like sitting here and talking about them for 10 hours. And I'm just like, well, based on the character and what they showed us throughout the entire 10 hours we sat here and watched it, I think this is what could have happened.
Yeah.
I like that kind of stuff. Some people are like, no, this movie, for example, I need a squish. I need to see the squish. I need to see the blood run. I need to see fingers not move, pan above her head. Her eyes are open. They roll to the side kind of thing. Like people need that type of stuff to be like, let me walk out of the theater and I can drive home happy.
True.
I think there's a place for it. But at the same time, my last question to you guys. Post-credit scene. If you can do anything now to add another layer or level of connectivity to the MCU and remove a hot dog stand scene and forget about Strange getting his half-baked eye and Clea just slashing air and she's like, let's go. I didn't need to sit there for that. I kind of was disappointed personally with the post-credit scenes. Would you guys have kept them? If you were to change them, and if you're listening to this, drop some comments below what you would have done as well. What would you have done to increase that post-credit, mid-credit factor that the MCU made famous for over a decade? Whose wheels are turning fastest?
I was gonna say it seems Spider Brando has something.
I know he's got something.
He's got something on the cusp right there.
Literally, there's just like a
on the cusp that's about to make me go just like this. Just like this. What is it, Spider Brando?
I would definitely cut out the hot dog stand. As much as Sam Raimi wanted that there, and to kind of play off of like his other post-credit scenes with Bill Russell.
No.
Bill Russell? No. Bruce can't. No.
Bruce Campbell.
What's his name? What was his name?
Bill Russell.
Bruce Campbell.
I was gonna say Bruce Campbell at first too. I don't know why Bill Russell.
I was like Bill Russell, the Celtics player. Is he a Celtics player? Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't know why that name just came into my head.
That was good.
Anywho, I'd probably get rid of that scene. And replace it with something that had to do with either like just red out of Wanda's rocks, just have have like one last hope to be like, oh, was that like the final burst of her energy, or is that her like being alive? Now that would be a really cool open-ended ending. Or what was it? The second one with Clea could stay, but it needs to be longer and not just slash in the air and be like, okay, I pull up. Just straight up, just like, you're just gonna assume that this man's just gonna walk through a freaking portal with this random person that he has no idea for? What happened to Stranger Danger?
He is the stranger danger.
Yeah, he is strange. So
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I would have liked to see at least just a little glimpse of where they went, and just some hint of an incursion, more of an incursion. I want to see more incursions. Essentially, that's just like, why not see two universes getting cursed on one another?
Yeah.
Just builds to the whole like premise of Secret Wars and why it should be prevented. So much more. Those are the two things I would change.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah, you taking out. I think Bruce Campbell can stay because I think you just put him at the very end though, like very very end, and you have like a good mid credit scene. The Cleo one I do like for what it is. It just feels oddly placed where at the end of the movie is when he gets his weird third eye and then it cuts to black and they're like, oh wait, by the way, this happens. It's like, wait, what? It just feels the flow of it felt weird. So I would say maybe put that at the very end along with him getting the eye, like as he gets the eye, Clea pops out. I might have to second what Brando said. An incursion would have been really nice to see. And I think you could have done it with, if they didn't have Sinister Strange, at least a evil version of Strange getting in an incursion world. Maybe them dropping that plot point in the movie and then you see it happening. Or me personally, we've talked about this character, but having Supreme Strange, I think, break out of that prison that he's in would have been nice to see because that would have left something that would have leave you talking for days and being like, oh wow, this is going to set up something really cool for live action Strange. So that's my pick.
All right, here we go. I'm taking a minute plus of your guys' time.
Go for it.
Because I think the movie ultimately could have ended, and I think Shumagorath could have been the big villain of this movie, essentially. And you do have a big fight, and at the end, Wanda does kind of go full Scarlet Witch to ultimately, take Strange and him channeling majority of his Darkhold power, and her doing it as well. Right? It's a dark energy that defeats this. But ultimately she ends alive. No kids, no death. She gets maximum power, Strange maximum power. You play it in a way to where they both, Strange likes it, Wanda hates it at that point. But in the end, there's two things that happen, and I have a lot of potential scenes, but I would say for a mid-credit scene, post-credit scene, one is Wanda's, one is Strange's. And you do the Strange scene first, where almost like they did the whole dream thing when he's in bed and all that kind of stuff. You have him go through a transformation where we see him just wigging out, and you really just see that body morphing. You see powers, things are flying around. Like, it is a chaotic scene, and we get the emergence of that eye. And he looks for his book, and Clea's standing there or something, and she's like, if you want the real thing, follow me. I know who has it. And she does her slash in the bedroom or something like that, and we see that dimension where we know they're going to the dark dimension, and they're going because Dormammu has it, or someone related, or it's there with him. And he craves it so much, he's like, fine, I'll go. Like, I need it. Almost like he's having withdrawals from not trying to use something along those lines. And then the following scene, you have Wanda, who knows a spell, memorized a spell, but it's essentially to get rid of her Scarlet Witch powers. She performs it, but she gets trapped in some sort of spherical looking thing. And it's ultimately she traps herself in the dimension with Supreme Strange. And you just hear a voice of like a hello, Wanda. She has no powers because she did the spell, but she somehow ended up in the same space as him and no one else. Those would be my two big scenes that I would have.
I like that.
Yeah, it's just, it's just something. I mean,
Yeah. Here's one final question that I will ask, because I feel like this was at least one more wasted potential to the movie. Could they have set up a different, I guess, mystical side of Marvel character in this movie better instead of America? And I'm not even saying instead of America. Could they have established someone else? And for me personally, I'll answer it really quick. I think this would have been a really good time to introduce Ghost Rider. Especially in the, if they want to use the Strange as evil in every storyline, they could have set up he's the spirit of vengeance. He's going after Strange, and you kind of set up a hero versus hero fight that they eventually team up.
I will take that, and I will raise you one. I would have preferred I had a tertiary, if you will, where you have a post-credit scene where essentially Mordo is seen killing all the outlying Stranges. Sorcerer, Sinister, Mordo's the one that ends him. And he's talking to Mephisto, and you obviously show he's leveled up. You see Mephisto, who's in a form, not an actual body, but now Mephisto gets a body. And you see him show up in New York on the streets, whatever, looking good in his suit. And he walks past a character, and it's a Ghost Rider. And he says, well, what are you going to do about him? And Ghost Rider's like, I'm going to take care of him, and then I'm coming for you. And that, for me, would have been my Ghost Rider appearance of that. And you see him just ride off, and there's just a blaze down the streets of New York, and just trail of fire. That would have been, for me, I would have lost my marbles if something like that would happen. It's like a mutual respect, but he's like, I'm going after Strange, but after I deal with him, I'm going to deal with you.
Johnny Blaze?
I would be fine with the Johnny Blaze. I think that he would be a fun one to get right.
Yeah.
And then you get to your because I think he's like the grittier, like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And like, I'm the guy that's going to just set you on fire type of thing. And just add another element of a character we really don't have in the MCU right now.
Yeah.
Personally. That'd be my secondary play. But a Ghost Rider, I don't really think you have anyone else come in, but like just a tease of Ghost Rider would be more than enough for me and really solidify that Midnight Suns-esque part. That why wouldn't you put that in the MCU? You know?
Yeah. Spider-Man, no? Ghost Rider thoughts?
It would have been kind of weird. I feel like to fit. It feels like for an 838, like teasing him there. That would be great. But like 616, I don't know. I would have felt a little out of place. I'm open to Ghost Rider in the 616 soon enough, but for this movie, I don't know.
He would have had.
There's a lot of rumors with freaking like a million different characters supposed to be in this movie.
To be honest with you, I don't think America gets replaced. I think for Ghost Rider, he's a post-credit scene. But if you were to plug Clea in here, I think she would have been enough. But again, it's a dimensional character, not a multiversal type character. So we're staying within the 616 in a way. We're not bouncing. You never make it to 838 if America's really not in here. There's no reason. But 838 hasn't shown up again, so what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
It's just one of those things where it's like, if you're not going to introduce these types of characters in Strange, where else are you going to introduce them? Because then you get something that feels incredibly out of place, like Eternals, where you're like, "Hey, Blade, there you go," and
No,
you know,
Blade should have been in this movie without a shadow of a
yeah,
doubt. There's no question in my mind. If you're gonna have another cameo of a character, Blade, Werewolf by Night, Elsa Bloodstone, Man Thing, those are the characters that show up here in a way. Even if you reference them, they
I was going to say Blade feels like he fits better in the. He would fit a little smoother in the Jesus Christ, what's the name of the movie or special? Werewolf by Night. He fits a little better there.
for sure.
But I think here you can fit someone so much easier, like a Mephisto, like a writer. You know, even again, like you said, even if it's just a small reference, but to fit them in there, you then establish another part of that MCU, another corner of that MCU that we're gonna see.
Okay. I'll give you this. Because I feel like in my head, you saying that is like Blade is more of a grounded character. And if we want to, there's two levels of the mystical side of the MCU. There's like out there travel where it's like almost it feels cosmic in a way. There's Earth-based and there's cosmic versions of the mystical side where it's like dimensional and then it's like underground, right?
Yeah.
Those are your two kind of plays. I almost feel personally that this would have been a stretch, and I don't know if it would have worked, but it would have been the most grounded bridge I think you could come up with in the MCU. We didn't know this could be possible at the time, but I almost think you have a Wanda who performs a spell and separates herself, Scarlet Witch and Wanda. She tries to live her life. She blacks out. She wakes up and she's under the control of the High Evolutionary, who's like, listen, Hydra tried to perform on you. They weren't even close. Like, why would they ever use that? Like, you're a mutant, you're something, and they retcon the retcon or something along those lines, or at least acknowledge like what they took from you is very important. And I might be able to put it back. I'm going to help you get those powers back. And she's like, I don't want them. And he's like, you don't have a choice because of who you are. And you bridge the cosmic, the mystical, the technology, these stones, the bands. You think that they're ancient relics, but they're really cosmic, like everything, the Eternals. We pull all that stuff together, and I think the High Evolutionary could have been that character to be like, I know that you think you have mystical powers. I know more about you than you know about you. And it's the real High Evolutionary, and we think that he's actually dead in Guardians 3, but that was just a clone. That wasn't the real version. This is the big bad version who is just like, I made you. They got you because you got away, just like Rocket got away. I don't think that would be too far off. His people or things he's experimenting on can get away from him. We now are just taking that science with magic and all that, the old with the new, and blending it and being like, science is just magic. Magic is just science kind of thing.
To that point, maybe you could even have, at this point, if they want to do that, let's say Multiverse of Madness came out later on, after Guardians 3, what they could have done and still keeping, like you said, all those connections tied really well, just have him be a alternate dimension High Evolutionary. That's like, hey, I've been seeing I saw what this version of the High Evolutionary studied on. He studied on animals. He was weak. He was nothing. I know what you are, like you said. I know what you are, and I've seen it through different dimensions, but you're the best one.
Now, to that point, though, is that not a Kang thing? Could that not be a Mortis?
It could. It very well could.
It probably should.
They still could, though.
Colors.
They still could.
Yeah.
I was just saying that like High Evolutionary got similar colors. Wasn't his suit like green and purple, kind of, or green at least?
It was like purple and
yeah,
bluish, and it looked more
purple.
like
it was more purple.
But I mean, I don't know. For me personally, I think in hearing this back for the last 50 something minutes that we've been talking about this, Exactly. Yeah. Boom, Marvel, have you been looking for this? Because again, for as much as people want things to tie
That was a
together.
misclick.
Oh,
My phone
no.
fell on my keyboard.
No, it's all good. I think the thing here in the big miss is like having a main puppeteer and have your overarching second tier villain to kind of counterbalance. I think it would have been a lot cleaner to know that. I think a Mephisto still would have been good. I know that's nothing new. If you're listening to this, that's been thrown around since day one. But having another sub villain, if you wanted to even get out there, you could have thrown in Morgan Le Fay with the Darkhold. You could have had ties with Doctor Doom and the sorcerer sides of him and Strange. There's a lot that they could have done with this. I just think that this movie came out too soon for them to really execute that based on everything that you guys were saying before.
Yeah.
Given the time that this was made and all the issues that they had, I think they put their best foot forward given the scenario. However, if Marvel Studios could redo this in a lot of ways now, and this movie probably still could have come out now, but this movie could have been delayed for a couple years and probably been fine.
Oh, for sure.
This would have been massive I mean, what if you did this in Deadpool 2024? That could have been nasty.
I like that.
Hot. Would you think this movie would have done well if it were to have swapped with Quantumania? Quantumania came out first, and then Multiverse. But then though, I guess you had No Way Home kind of riding on the hype train for Multiverse of Madness, though. And that whole WandaVision, No Way Home. Boom, boom, boom.
I would say everything as is. I would have swapped this with the Marvels.
Ooh. Interesting.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head how close that puts it to Miss Marvel. Because Miss Marvel was 21 or was it 22?
22.
I don't think that would have been terrible to do, but I think that would have helped Secret Invasion. I think that would have helped WandaVision and given them time to really adjust as necessary. And I think this would have created more intrigue after Quantumania, like nothing else has. Guardians has not. Loki kind of has, but everyone's still not fully on the train of like what this is going to do for the MCU overall.
Yeah.
This is the one movie where you're just like, what is coming next? I think that would have been, I don't know. I think this could have came out
definitely
later.
Yeah, I was gonna say it definitely would have benefited from later, because it's not like it really had anything to do with No Way Home, like how people thought.
Yeah.
They had that little mention of like the events, but I think would have definitely benefited later.
I'll give you that.
I agree.
Later push. Well, that's all I got. I mean,
yeah.
Find out what we rated this movie, their MCU rankings. That will be coming out before the year's up. But it's an interesting movie.
It is.
Very interesting movie. And I think that as is, there's still enough. I think Hero Scroll, you might have mentioned it. There's enough here that it can continue to age well. If they follow it up properly and you keep that Raimi continuity and string this to Strange 3, this could feel like a part 1 of something.
Thank you all for tuning into this MCU redo episode from the Point 3 podcast. Don't forget to join us Wednesdays at 9:05 p.m. Eastern Time for our YouTube live stream. Except for the next 2 Wednesdays, Spider Brando will not be there. We'll be in the Caribbean islands. Not Spider Brando Chef Kid certified. For you guys, no, but for me and my vacation time, I need it. Anyways, catch the full episodes of our podcast anywhere you listen. Comment below and let us know your thoughts of any changes to Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness over on our socials at Point3 Podcast on Instagram or TikTok so that we can feature your comments in our next episode. And also, if you have any suggestions on what MCU redo show or movie you would like to be seen next, also comment that below and we could prioritize which episodes and movies we get to. And until then, keep watching, keep reading, and keep nerding out.